Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru Season 4, The Shadow Rising.
Yay!
I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. Real quick, though, for those of you who reached out to us during the hiatus, we just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
We were both genuinely touched by your messages, and I personally really appreciated your kind words. And it's really nice to know that we were missed.
Yeah, it is.
So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing okay. You know, we're surviving the coronavirus and all that stuff. I'm getting used to working from home, but I'm doing okay.
Yeah, for those of you who did not catch our update last month, we're fine.
Yeah.
You know, you guys know that we live in Southern California. We're in the LA area, but as of now, Tim and I are doing okay. Neither one of us have gotten it, and none of our close family has gotten it. So we're as healthy as can be expected, and we're dealing with this as well as anybody is, really. You know, staying home, washing our hands, doing the thing. So we're good. Before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we're going to be kicking off Season 4 by discussing Chapter 1 of The Shadow Rising, which is insanely long, so it will take a whole episode just to get through that one chapter.
Yeah. The Shadow Rising is the only book in the series that doesn't technically start with a prologue, but really this first chapter is so similar to Jordan's other prologues that it serves the same purpose.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm not sure why they chose not to call a spade, but this is pretty much a prologue.
Basically. I'm not sure why they made the decision either, but regardless, Chapter 1 is called Seeds of the Shadow, and the icon is the wheel.
Here is a not-so-quick summary. I told you it was a long chapter, y'all. To act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. The wheel of time turns, and ages come to pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose on the great plain called the Carlean Grass. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. Min arrived at the White Tower disguised in a dress, hoping that no one would recognize her. She joins others who are petitioning the Aes Sedai for help. An accepted that Min recognized, Faelaine, approaches her and asks how the tower can help her. Luckily, Faelaine does not seem to remember her. Min starts to tell her that she has a question that she must ask the Amyrlin seat, but is cut short by the arrival of 3 Aes Sedai. The other petitioners are awed by their presence, but what stills Min's tongue is the barrage of images that she sees over them. Images of blood and death revealed to Min the 3 sisters' grim futures. Faelaine tells Min that the Amyrlin is too busy to see everybody, but Min is insistent, claiming the right of every woman to seek audience with the Amyrlin. Faelaine asks her name, trying to push her off to one of the Aes Sedai. Min refuses to be deferred and gives the name Elmendreda, hoping the Amyrlin will remember the name Min hated so much and never used. Faelaine gives Min her trademark bad attitude, but has no choice other than to pass Min's request to the Keeper of the Chronicles. As Min waited, Aes Sedai and Accepted came and went from the hall. Min saw images over almost all of them. Wounds, captivity, death. A novice named Sarah arrived to take Min to the Amyrlin's study. Min saw more images of death and destruction on the sisters she passed, on the warders, even on some of the servants. So many were going to die on the same day, and still others were going to be chained and collared. They finally get to the hall outside the Amyrlin's study just as a very angry Gawain is storming out. As soon as he sees Min, he asks where Egwene and Elaine have gone. Panicking, Min grabs Gawain's sleeve, saying that the girls left for the tower months ago and should be there by now. Gawain reassures Min that they arrived safely, but then left again without a word. Min tries to placate him, reminding him that the girls wouldn't thank him for meddling. This does not lessen Gawain's anger at all, and he reminds her that he is sworn to protect Elaine, and he can't do that if he doesn't know where she is. Min wants to shake him, but she has bigger fish to fry at the moment. She tells him that she will find him after she speaks with the Amerlin. Sarah leads Min to the Keeper of the Chronicles, and Leanne dismisses her right away. Leanne recognizes Min instantly and has a few sharp words for her, but doesn't hesitate to pass Min along to the Amerlin. Not quick enough, though, for Min to avoid seeing the vision of Leanne looking through a transparent mask of her own face. A screaming mask. Once in front of the Amerlin, Min tells Siuan everything she saw since entering the tower, and tries desperately to get Siuan to take her viewings seriously. With fishing metaphors and Aes Sedai hubris, Siuan moves past Min's visions. Min can't provide details, and Siuan doesn't have time to worry about nebulous threats when there are so many specific ones to deal with at the moment. Instead, she asks about Rand, and Min tells her that he's on the way to Tyr. Siuan is pissed that Moraine is already leading him to take Kalendor, saying that he can't possibly be ready for that. And Min explains that it wasn't Moraine's idea. He ran off in the middle of the night, and the others chased after him. They talk about prophecy and the last battle. Siuan wheedles out Min's feelings for Rand and her vision that she would love him and have to share him. Message delivered, Min wants to head off to Tyr to catch up with Rand, but Siuan manipulates her, telling her that Rand is in danger from Aes Sedai that can't accept change, and of course there's the Black Aja to consider. If she truly loves him and wants to help him, Min should stay in the tower and work from the inside. She wants Min to replace the Supergirls as her Black Aja hunters and make use of Min's visions while she can. She orders Min to dial the Elmendretta disguise up to 11, with curls in her hair and makeup on her face. Siuan will spread it around that Elmendretta encouraged two lovers so much that she has to hide in the tower until she chooses which one she wants. Min is horrified by the entire plan, but Siuan Sanchi is a hard woman to defy, and Min finds herself firmly ensnared in Siuan's net.
I don't understand fishing metaphors!
I'm going to cut the summary off there for now. We're about halfway through, so let's discuss the first half of the chapter.
One thing I love about the way Jordan writes descriptions is how he slips in details like Min's boots. Mm-hmm. He could have simply said that Min was carrying her normal clothes with her and left it at that. Instead, he mentions the boots along with those clothes. I think he does it on purpose because he's already set up how much of an affinity the Two Rivers boys have for their boots, and every time the boys think about them, they think about home and wish for things to be as they were. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but for me, it was a reminder that Min is still holding on to her way of life. Mm-hmm. While she's wearing a dress and trying to pass herself off as someone else, her old self is very much with her because that is basically what boots have come to represent, or at least what a good pair of boots represents.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the entire function of Faye Lane's character is to be a jackass.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she was a jerk to the girls when they were in the tower before, and she'll be a jerk to them later in Saladar, and she's a jerk to Min here. She's just a horrible person.
Yeah.
I know she comes in handy for Egwene later, but man, this girl bugs me, you know? Like, there are certain lesser characters that aren't evil, but they're just designed to be a thorn in the side of our main characters, and Faye Lane is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Min's birth name is Elmendretta, which she hates. Her mother named her for a character out of a story who was known to manipulate men and wrap them around her finger. Obviously, Min is nothing like that.
Right.
And it sucks that she has to pose as Elmendretta during the length of her stay here in Tar-Valon. But it's interesting to compare her to Fail. Zareen is a name that Fail rejects outright because of the connotations, just like Min. But Min doesn't find nearly the same resistance to the identity she's chosen for herself that Fail did in The Dragon Reborn. You know, like, the entire reason her disguise works, or mostly works, Elaida, is because anyone who knows her can't even imagine her as an Elmendretta, because Min is so different, you know?
Right.
And even when she's able to get out of her disguise and chooses to wear more shapely breeches tailored to show off her figure, no one questions her chosen identity. And I just think it's really interesting to note the difference in response to Fail and Min for pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, good point.
And maybe that's just because Perrin is super stubborn.
Never.
Or, I don't know. Like, he just... For some reason, there was the whole I refuse to accept who you choose to be thing in The Dragon Reborn. Whereas with Min, it's never even a question.
True, but also I think part of that is that Min has been introduced from the get-go as Min, whereas Fail actually, like, was trying to, like, call herself Mandarb at one point, you know, like...
Yeah, for, like, 5 seconds. Like, she said her name was Mandarb, Perrin laughed at her because it was the horse, and then she came up with a new name, like, immediately.
But my point is that Fail in that point of the story hasn't really settled on her identity yet. She's still kind of searching out. She's trying to make up her own nickname. Whereas when we're first introduced to Min, that whole part of her life has already been decided. Like, this is Min.
Yeah, true. Very true. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting because everybody called her Zareen in, except for Loyal. Loyal is the only one who didn't call her Zareen in that book.
That's very true.
Both Perrin and Moraine insisted on calling her Zareen through the entire thing. Whereas with Min, everyone's like, well, whatever. You know, you do you. Like, you should.
Right.
You know? So, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting.
It is very interesting.
Anyway. So, Min's entire journey through the tower is a horror show.
Yeah.
Bloody faces, gaping wounds. Everywhere she looks, she sees blood and death and destruction. And when they're not going to die, she sees Aes Sedai chained and collared by the Shanshan.
Uh-huh.
Like, we've said it before, but it would suck to have Min's power. She sees all of this happen and knows that there is nothing she can do to stop it. She repeatedly gets screwed by the pattern. And I feel so sorry for her, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess we should talk about how what she's seeing is the battle in the tower when Siuan gets deposed. When she knows that the warders and the servants are also going to die on the same day as the sisters, it's all from that battle.
Okay.
The rest is probably from when the Shanshan raid the tower. But most of what Min sees here is foreshadowing what's going to happen later in this book.
Yeah, so it is definitely both things that she's seeing.
Yeah, like when she sees the sisters collared, that's definitely the Shanshan, because they make off with a few of them. Right.
But when she sees Leanne, like, when she sees her, like, double vision, like, as she's looking through a mask, a transparent mask, that's definitely the deposing Siuan.
Yeah, when she gets stilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and also when she sees Siuan in her study when she's, like, naked and...
yes.
I can't remember exactly what she sees, but yeah, like basically everything that she sees where she knows that it's going to happen on the same day. Anytime she says that it's going to happen on the same day, it's going to be when Siuan gets deposed and the battle that ensues.
Right. Okay.
Especially everything that has to do with the warders and the servants.
That makes a lot more sense. I always have a hard time figuring out which is which. So thanks for pointing that out.
Anytime she points out that it's going to all happen on the same day, that's when Siuan gets deposed at the end of this book.
Got it.
When she sees other things, like the women being colored, but she doesn't have the thought that it's going to happen on the same day, that's at a separate time, probably during the Shanshan attack.
Okay. All right, cool. And here comes Gawain, messing everything up just by being there. But it does suck that Min sees all that death and devastation is going to impact someone she knows personally.
Yeah.
And, like, brothers, man, when Gawain says Elaine is playing at being Aes Sedai, it really just shows how much he does not understand about his sister. Mm-hmm. Yes, his mother went to Tarvalon to be trained there as Andorian tradition dictated, but it was a very short time and Margase was barely strong enough in the power to be of any consequence.
Right.
However, Elaine is going to be one of the most powerful Aes Sedai in the tower, with very few people above her. Gawain does not see his sister for who she truly is, just as a younger version of his mother, and that's not cool.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing about Gawain is that he keeps talking about how he is sworn to protect Elaine, and that's his raison d'etre. The whole my blood shed before hers, my life given before hers thing, which is great and all, but Gawain is full of it. If this was true, then when he had the chance to go after Elaine, he would have. And at the very least, he could have gone back to Camlin after Siuan was deposed so that he could get the Andorran army involved to try to find her.
Yep.
Instead, he screws around with the younglings for a while and then abandons them for Egwene. He totally forgets about his sister and is totally preoccupied with getting a girlfriend. Like, he's furious with Siuan and disenchanted with the manipulations, secrets, and lies of the tower. But he's not being honest with himself about why. It's not because of Elaine, or at least not only because of Elaine. He's angry with Siuan for thwarting his chances with Egwene.
Yeah.
He's so useless.
Do I even want to comment on the, you ought to wear a dress more often? It's pretty on you.
Ugh.
I mean, way to go, Gawain. You might as well just tell her she ought to smile more.
Yeah, not a fan. Min tries so hard to get Siuan to take her viewing seriously, but to no avail. And I mean, it's not that Siuan doesn't believe her, but without more detail, there's not much Siuan can do about it.
True.
She can only deal with what's in front of her, and Rand has managed to light all of her plans on fire.
Yep.
She's still under the impression that she and Moraine have to lead Rand around on a leash and hasn't had the experience of actually dealing with him that Moraine has had to convince her that these manipulations aren't going to work, you know?
Yeah. Like, I noticed this time around that I'm a lot more empathetic to Siuan's predicament than I was the first reading through these books a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I used to be 100% on Min's side, thinking that Siuan was absolutely trying to manipulate Rand for the good of the tower and not necessarily for the good of Rand.
And she kind of is.
Basically, but I feel like many fans do, that Siuan was the perfect example of the tower operating from a place of arrogance due to their power and knowledge and the hubris that comes with those things. Mm-hmm. Now I kind of get that Siuan really was just trying to hold things together. Mm-hmm. She is a master planner who thought she knew the best way to get Rand to the last battle without the world being destroyed in the process. So when those plans start to fall apart, she got hyper-focused on what she saw was right in front of her and could be dealt with at that time. I think I'm now in a place where I don't see her manipulation of Rand as such a bad thing. It's more of the Aes Sedai assumption that they know best that always rubs me the wrong way now.
Yeah. And like the thing with Siuan is that, you know, she was 100% manipulating everyone around her. And she did come at it with all of the hubris and arrogance.
Absolutely.
But like, she learns her lesson and changes. So when, I mean, Siuan is always going to be a bit of a manipulator. Like, she just can't help herself.
She's a schemer.
She likes to pull the strings. She likes to be in charge. She needs to be in the know. Mm-hmm. And that's just who she is as a person. But, like, her motivations shift, and she learns that there are consequences to those actions.
Yeah.
And so when the time comes for her to help Egwene, she's a lot more responsible with the way she goes about things.
That's a lot less the Emerald can do things because she's the Emerald.
She has a lot less arrogance.
Yeah.
Like, she still manipulates, and because she still knows how to play the game. And there are, like, there comes a certain point when you've played the game for so long, you can't help but see the moves. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like Tom. He doesn't necessarily want to play the game, but he can't help himself.
He sees things moving and he reacts accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Siuan is like that. She's played the game for so long, she can't help herself. But her motivations and her arrogance get taken down a lot. Like, she learns her lesson and she changes for the better, and she's not nearly as destructive.
Well, she paid a big price for it, too.
She did. She absolutely did.
Yeah.
You know? And that's one thing that I appreciate about Siuan that, like, for example, Elaida never gets. Elaida never learns her lesson, but Siuan does.
True.
You know?
Yeah. The exchange where Min says she's not the first woman to make a fool over herself, and Siuan says the first to be a fool over the Dragon Reborn, this always makes me laugh. Because that would not be Min. That would be Lanfear.
For sure. I thought that too when I read it. I was like, wouldn't that be Lanfear?
Throughout this reread, I've really been feeling a lot of sympathy for Min.
Yeah.
Most of our characters, like Ran, who's Tavaran, have their lives being manipulated and pushed by the pattern in a specific direction and feel like they have no say in what is happening. But Min is unique in that she knows that the pattern requires that she loves Rand, and she has no way of changing that fact. It must really suck to constantly be asking yourself if you love a person because you chose to love them or because the universe decreed it must be so. And now she is starting to struggle, not just with that existential crisis, but also trying to do what is best for Rand without feeling like some lovesick fool. Mm-hmm. I really like Min, and I just feel a lot more for her predicament this reread than I have in previous times through.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think Min is a sympathetic character. She's in a really crappy position kind of all the time.
Basically.
At least for the first several books, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about the good guys. Now let's talk about the bad guys. Back to the summary. Elaida charges through the tower after seeing and recognizing Min going to talk to the Amerlin. Dress or no dress, she recognized the girl as a friend of Elaine, Egwene, and Nynaeve. Elaida had tried to find the supposed farm where the girls were alleged to be doing penance, but to no avail. That bloody Sanche woman was hiding them. She was furious at losing Elaine. Elaida had a foretelling that the royal line of Andor would be the key to defeating the Dark One in the last battle. She had attached herself to Morghese in Andor and had returned to the tower to oversee the daughter heir personally. Now she was gone, and somehow it was Rand al'Thor's fault, because of course it is. Stupid Tavaran. She knew Siuan and Moraine were up to something. She remembered how close they were when they were young, and whatever they were up to, it had to involve the boy. Somehow he had to be stopped from destroying Andor. She even wonders if perhaps the boy could channel, but dismisses it. Even Siuan wouldn't hide something like that. Elaida's musings are interrupted by Alviarin of the White Aja. Elaida tells Alviarin about her suspicion regarding Siuan. Alviarin verifies that Elaida does not have any proof of Siuan being improper, and Elaida tells her not yet. It's a start. One way or another, Siuan would be stopped before she could destroy the tower. The Whitecloaks have landed in the Two Rivers, led by Dane Bornhald. Dane watches Child Buyer intimidating the people of Terran Ferry across the river when one of his men alerts him that there is trouble with the caravan of tinkers the Whitecloaks have captured. Ordeith, a.k.a. Pan Fane, was talking to three of them, and now those three are missing. Bornhald confronts Ordeith and is met with Fane's usual trickery and double talk. Dane did not like the man, and his position was nebulous, but he had orders from Pedron Niall himself to work with Ordeith and root out dark friends in the Two Rivers. Ordeith is obviously crazy, and he has wild mood swings and violent instincts. Dane tries to assert his authority, but Ordeith basically pats him on the head and dismisses him entirely. He starts talking about scouring the Two Rivers and that he will come to him now. Dane has no idea what the man is talking about and resents being saddled with a madman, but he's willing to put up with it for the time being. Anything to avenge his father's death. Lady Suroth is heading up the remaining Shanshan forces, hiding out on a few seafolk islands still in Shanshan control. The Korean, the Return, is still on, though obviously damaged after the disaster at Falme. Suroth is stressing out about the Dragon Reborn, and Jordan reveals a little more about how seriously screwed up the Shanshan culture is. Alwyn, a former Soldam, and the one who found Rena and Seta collared, has been raised to Sojin by Suroth in order to buy her silence. Suroth is furious about it, and Alwyn has an attitude problem. Put a pin in that. We'll get back to it in Knife of Dreams. Seraph interrogates a Domine named Pura, a former Aes Sedai, on how the tower would deal with the Dragon Reborn, but is dissatisfied with the answers she gets. Pura has no idea why any woman would help a man that can channel. There's just no way. Seraph knows in order to assure success, she must capture this Dragon Reborn. But the question is, when she did, should she give him to the Empress or not? Dun, dun, dun.
It's nice to get very straightforward motivation for why Elaida is so pissed at this point in the story.
Because that's just who she is.
Well, this actually is justified. Like, even if she wasn't power hungry and self-absorbed, she spent her entire life making sure she was going to be a key part in the defeat of the Dark One in the final battle. Mm-hmm. She has a foretelling that the royal line of Andor would be key to the battle. So she did everything in her power to hide that information and attach herself to Morghese once it was clear that she would become queen.
Right.
We are talking years of planning, manipulating, and turning down other opportunities to do this. Mm-hmm. Something I always forget is that Elaida is one of the top 3 or 5 strongest Aes Sedai in the tower before the Supergirls reset the scale. And that means she's very likely she could have been at least a sitter, if not the Amyrlin herself. Mm-hmm. And to have all of that go up in smoke because Elaine appears to have run away from the tower would make anyone mad.
Yeah, for sure.
And now she sees that Elaine is being used in some kind of plan that Siuan is hatching that will only make things worse between Andor and the tower. But my sympathy for Elaida stops there, because her motivation to keep Andor whole is not motivated by love for the people or the well-being of the kingdom. Instead, it's motivated by her selfish desire to be there to help guide the forces of the light to win the last battle. Elaida is all about being in the spotlight and being seen as the one who made things happen and being remembered for the great things that she has done.
Yeah. And also, while Elaida has the gift of foretelling, she does not have the gift of interpretation.
Yeah.
She gets everything wrong every single time.
Yep.
She's so sure that House Traken is the key to everything. But in fact, her foretelling of Andor being the key is about Rand.
Yep.
She's trying to destroy the person her foretelling told her to protect. She sees chaos, pain, and division swirling around Rand and assumes he's a black hat, and that means he's going to destroy Andor and maybe the whole world with it. Elaida, she's not capital E evil, but she's so misguided and wrong about everything that she may as well be.
Right.
You know, like, she makes the wrong choice every time.
Yeah, she does more good for the bad guys than the good.
Yeah.
Without being a bad guy, which is...
Yeah.
Takes talent. Speaking of wrong choice, wouldn't you know the first person Elaida confides any of her thoughts about the possibility of Siuan helping a man that can channel would be the head of the Black Aja.
Yep.
The will weaves as the will wills, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the question. Is Elaida stupid on her own merit or because the pattern demanded it?
Oh, yeah. Predeterminism
if
debate
it
there.
wasn't Elaida, would it have been someone else?
Well, if it wasn't Elaida, it may have gone down differently. But I think only Elaida could have messed
able to rot her specific brand of damage.
Yeah, I mean, I like to believe that the pattern needed something to go wrong. I believe that this particular thread has a little bit of will of its own to like make that happen in a specific way, because you can't duplicate Elaida. Don't believe it.
Yeah. One, the only, because one is enough. Thank you very much.
Please, only one.
Anyway.
Point of view switch to Dane Bornhold.
Yay.
Yeah.
Whitecloaks.
Yeah, we're not even out of the first chapter in the book, and the bad guys are already starting to get their plans in place. Elaida is starting to get her coup underway, and Padden Fane, a.k.a. Ordeath, has brought the Whitecloaks to the Two Rivers under the guise of allowing Bornhold to find Piran and bring him to justice for killing Whitecloaks and revenge on the death of his father, Afame. I don't mind Bornhold's point of view as much as I do Fane's, so it's good to get a quick recap from his perspective. He may be a Whitecloak to the core, but he 100% has Ordeith pegged as a psychopath.
Yeah. Last time we saw Fane, he was with Pedro Nell. So we know that Nell has already been corrupted by the evil of Shatter Logoth, and that's why he ordered Dane to work with Ordeith.
Right.
I can't remember if we already talked about this, but the whole corruption thing is a very obvious nod to The Lord of the Rings. Ordeith means wormwood in the Old Tongue, and he gets close to the leaders, Pedronel, Elaida, etc.,
Right.
and corrupts them, essentially poisoning their mind, just like Grima Wormtongue, who poisoned the mind of King Theoden in The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And I know we've talked about other references to Tolkien in the earlier books, which is totally fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with paying homage in your work to those who came before you.
Right.
But I think this may be the last blatant reference to The Lord of the Rings in the series. If they're more, they're a lot more subtle, I think.
Right. Like, you're in terms of whether they're subtle, you're absolutely right. I think this is the last big, like, obvious
Big one, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there probably are more, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. So they're definitely not as blatant as this one.
Right. Dane is not totally stupid, and he realizes that they are a foreign army marching in Andorian-claimed lands, and they need to keep their presence quiet. The last thing he needs is a loose cannon that he may or may not have to take orders from. That is either killing prisoners for fun or letting them run away to alert others of their presence. And this is one of the reasons I love The Wheel of Time, because the bad guys are complicated. Dane Bornhold is a bad guy in my mind because he 100% stands behind the Whitecloaks and everything they represent. Mm-hmm. But even people like him have an issue with torturing and killing the Tuathan. I like my villains to have a little more than one dimension, and Jordan does a good job of delivering on that.
I think you may be giving Dane too much credit. I mean, sure, he doesn't want to kill tankers willy-nilly, but if he thought they had any useful information to offer, you could bet that torture would be back on the menu.
Oh, yeah.
He has a one-track mind. He is obsessed with revenge for what he thinks happened with his father. And he's willing to do anything to reach his goal. You are right that he is a conflicted bad guy, and we'll see how he becomes more and more compromised. He has limits, but they keep getting moved and stretched. But at the end of the day, while it may not have been his hand that committed certain acts, if he was there and didn't stop it, or if he covered it up, then doesn't that make him just as complicit?
It absolutely does. It's just, what I was getting at is that he can be that way. He can be absolutely complicit, but can also have things in the back of his mind that make him, like, question that.
Yeah, he's conflicted. You're right. Like,
Yeah.
Jordan does make good bad guys because he spends the entire book uncomfortable with the stuff that goes down.
Yeah. I 100% don't ever want to be accused of thinking Dane Bornhold is anything close to a good guy.
Oh, no.
I'm just commenting on, complexity.
Yeah, for sure.
We switch to Lady Suroth, and I really don't like her. Mm-hmm. It could be the whole Shanshan slavery thing, or maybe that she's just as self-absorbed as Elaida.
Or because she's evil, maybe, I don't know.
We do get an interesting line where she thinks to herself, where there would be no need to return to the Court of Nine Moons and apologize to the Empress for a failure not even hers. Just a subtle hint that the daughter of the Nine Moons is the heir to the Shanshan throne. I can't remember when Matt comes across that, but Jordan left this nugget in this chapter for us.
Yeah, this teeny tiny clue buried deep in the middle of Shanshan, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I did not pick up on that at all.
No, I think it took like 2 or 3 rereads to go, oh my God, this is here. Wow.
Yeah. Speaking of, also, did you catch the line, there was a saying, on the heights, the paths are paved with daggers.
Yeah.
The title of book 8 is Path of Daggers, and I assume it's a direct reference to this saying.
This is just me like pulling it from memory, but I think this actual quote is quoted at the start of the Path Attackers.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, we'll confirm it by the time we get there. But yeah.
A long time from now.
Years from now. We'll remember. Whatever.
Oh my gosh. I can't even.
Sirrah's plan is to capture the Dragon Reborn and deliver him to the Empress as a spoil of war or some kind of trophy. That's why she's pushing Pyrrha so hard to know how people on this side of the ocean control their male channelers. I can't even with the amount of hubris here with every Shanshan leader that we've ever encountered. They are so sure of the superiority that they put Aes Sedai to shame.
I feel like hubris is the word of the day.
Hubris? I don't know what you're talking about.
These characters, man. These characters.
Yeah. Just a quick reminder of who Pyrrha is. She was a sister of the Yellow Aja who was captured when the Shanshan first landed in Falme. There was a scene in The Great Hunt where Doman tells Nynaeve and Elaine that he saw the Shanshan take an Aes Sedai prisoner in the streets of Falme, and that there was a collared woman helping. Mm-hmm. Pyrrha was the Dame who helped capture her. Egwene has a brief encounter with her during her captivity as well, and we find out that she has been completely broken by her slavery, because the Shanshan are horrible people.
Agreed. Luckily, there's just the tiniest bit of Shanshan in this book.
Yeah.
So we don't have to deal with their mess of a society for a good long while. So I vote that we forget about the Shanshan for the time being.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's it for Chapter 1 of The Shadow Rising. All in all, this is a great start to the book. Bad guys are setting up plots all over the place, and our heroes are in for some really interesting challenges. Join us next week for Chapter 2, which is just as long as this one. And we're also going to cover it by itself.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure you rate and subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher. Check us out on YouTube. We're available all over the place. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so people can find us. You can tweet us at Pod-Thru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.